Good evening. I'd like to call the special meeting to order where we are hoping to interview and hire a search firm for our new superintendent. So I'd like to welcome our first guest. I will note that all board members are here except Ted, and we do expect him soon. I need approval of the agenda. Second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Thank you. And I'm going to turn it over to Brian here to do any introductions or any preliminary.
Well, so I'll
introduce ourselves.
Okay, all right.
To do that, Brian.
All right. So, gentlemen, the floor is yours.
Hey, thanks for inviting us. We're very excited to be here. We would love to work with you on your superintendent search. I'm Joe Porto. I am a retired superintendent. I had a 33-year career in education in the suburbs of Chicago in Illinois. I was every position you can imagine: teacher, assistant principal, assistant superintendent, and then 16 years as a superintendent. My last 10 years were in the suburb of Wilmette, which is on the North Shore of Chicago. Since retirement, I started my own consulting company where I just have been having a blast doing strategic plans and portrait of graduate work. I'm also started out after retirement as an associate with BWP, and now I'm a partner in the firm. And probably up to about 40 successful searches in my career.
Hi, my name is Todd Waunakee. Thanks for having us here today. Recently retired superintendent from Cedarburg. I was in Cedarburg for 9 years, 7 years as a superintendent. I retired this past June. Started working with the firm probably about 1.5 years ago. Excited to be able to give back to education. That's what I see my role as now. I had spent 35 years in public education, 30 of it in administration. Currently reside in Cedarburg, active Rotarian, member of the chamber ambassador. So very steeped in the community and well connected to the administrative network here in Wisconsin. And pleasure to be here. I have to say, you have a beautiful community and a great school district. I know of the school district. I know Randy, and it's a pleasure just to be here and cruise through downtown. I haven't been through downtown in a while. Boy, has it changed in some of the businesses. And
of course, he spotted the brewery.
and the bike shop. So
He said as we met. So
I haven't seen those. Excited. So thank you.
Dunkin' Donuts.
Well, we're excited. We're coming off 2 really successful Wisconsin searches in the last 6 months. We were pleased to be able to go up and help Green Bay find their new superintendent. And right before then, we worked in Waunakee. And we put this on the slide because what we're really proud of is, even though the market's kind of tight, we're not getting the numbers that we used to get maybe even 5 years ago. In both searches, we are very proud of the slate that we were able to find for both of those districts. Every one of those people we brought in could have done a great job for them. And they were also diverse. They were diverse gender-wise. We had males and females, people from all different backgrounds, races, and we were also able to recruit nationally, not just from the pool in Wisconsin. And I think that was appreciated by both districts. We have some questions that we're going to go through. We want to respect your time, so we'll probably zip through some and spend a little bit more time on others. But we want to make sure you have time for your questions at the end. So these are the questions we are going to cover in this presentation. And if you had something on your mind that you don't see up there, make sure you jot it down. But we will be able to answer these 8 questions. So who are we? We are a national firm, and our roots date back to the 1970s. In our history, we've done over 800 searches. We have 10 directors, partners, and almost 40 associates. And here's where Todd and I start to feel proud of being involved in our company. 99% of the placements we make complete their first contracts. Very rarely do we just not get the match right. 95% not only make it through the first, usually 3 years, but then get offered a successor contract, 95%. We've never had anybody dismissed for malfeasance or something we didn't see in the background check. We've never had that happen. You could Google us, you'll never see a lawsuit, anything like that. And we conduct our own internal accountability. And 95% of our clients rated us high satisfaction in their search with us. So hopefully, I think you're going to hear after you, I know the other two firms too, I'm going to be honest, our processes are pretty similar. And you probably won't hear a whole lot of difference in the processes. So we're going to try to highlight what does make us a little bit different. That those statistics are part of our Todd, yep, Todd is our Wisconsin guy, and so he's going to do this slide.
Yes. Wisconsin guy. Yeah, as I said, 30 years in administration here, Wisconsin, 35 in education, all here in Wisconsin. And so I have been active in many different organizations, and when we conduct a search, we use the local organizations and the national organizations. So you can see here, we have ties in the Wisconsin Association of School Boards and the Wisconsin Association of School District Administrators, and of course the AESA. Those are usual, same type of firm, or I should say, administrator associations that a lot of firms are tied to. But we have people in those firms, I mean, in that association that we have strong relationships with. I think what separates us a bit is the affiliation with the National Association of Black School Administrators and the Association of Latino Administrators and Superintendents. So having a national firm, we have ties to those associations. So we are able to dig deep into those associations when we're placing superintendents, for example, in School District of Green Bay. You'll note that we've had 71 successful searches in districts of this size, so range 3,000 to 7,000 students. So you're sitting at just under 4,500 students, so we're right within that range. Waunakee was in that range as well. A lot of similarities between the setup of the district or the tenure of the administrators. So we feel very confident in being able to recruit and find excellent administrators for your school district. You can see there a list of the candidates that we have placed over the last 2 years. Again, we don't need to really reiterate the fact that we will do what the board asks us to do. If you want a diverse pool of candidates, then we will shake the trees and get diverse candidates for your pool. I can tell you, just knowing that this is open, there's candidates out there that I know who are already interested in this position. They know that we're here tonight, and so I already have my short list going for this position. And so that work continues, and it will continue until we find the right person.
And just one last point on this slide, the local focus and national reach is demonstrated in those two searches that I just mentioned. The Waunakee search ended up with a Wisconsin person who came in through the ranks. The Green Bay search ended up being a gentleman from Pittsburgh. So we have the ability to make sure we're getting all the right local people that match your profile, as well as some national people as well. So let me take you through the 5 phases of our process. And again, I'll try to do this quickly, and you can always look at it a little bit later. But the big point I want to make in phase 1 is the first word there, customizing. We have a model, we have a template. What I'm about to share with you is our template. But what we're pleased to offer as well is individualization. We've done all kinds of tweaks and alterations to meet the specific needs of our client. So if there's some part of the process that you think is weak and needs to be punched up, we can do that. If there's a part you're uncomfortable with, we can change that. So we're very flexible, and the first thing we will do if you call us and tell us we got this job is we'll set up another meeting like this, and we will plan it. We will plan the whole process together, and any kind of individualization you need will take place. Phase 2, in my opinion, is an area that we excel and is also, in my opinion, almost maybe the most important of the 5 phases. I like to say that we're not like that movie Field of Dreams. If you build it, they will come. If you put up an ad saying, you know, we're recruiting, we keep our fingers crossed and we hope the right people apply. We don't let that happen. Our success is finding the right match. Somebody could be really good for this community and not good for another, and vice versa. There's a lot of great superintendents that might apply that we've had to say, you know, I got a different search that you match up better with, but not this one. So how do we do that? We develop a very unique profile for you. We do that in 3 ways. We come at it 3 different ways. One thing we'll do is we will have an individual meeting with all 7 of you. We will meet for about 30 minutes or so. We will ask you 3 basic questions. The same 3 questions we're going to ask throughout this process of building your profile. We like to ask, make this really simple. What are the things you're most proud of about your community and your district? What are some areas that maybe could be strengthened or reinforced? And what are the most important characteristics and qualities you're looking for in your next superintendent? We will do that. We take notes. We write down everything everybody says. Second thing we do is we'll put together a survey form. We have a template for that, but we've also individualized that for districts, as long as we're taking the time to do that. Some districts say, hey, can we ask a couple other things that could help us too? Sure. But we'll basically ask those same 3 questions. We'll ask your tech people to put that on your website so people can come to your website, see the survey. It could be completed by parents, non-parent community members, the faculty. We like the kids. We get a lot of good feedback from the high school kids, middle school kids too. So we will be able to offer that for usually about a 2-week period. And then it comes back with beautiful charts and great data. And then the third and final approach of the 3-pronged approach to build your profile is we'll work with somebody like Brian or whoever superintendent wants us to work with. We'd like to come in for a day in the district, and we'd like to meet with as many focus groups as we could. So that usually means maybe a meeting with the teachers at a couple of the different schools and make sure that teachers have a chance to get to wherever that is. We usually have a couple of parent meetings. We like to meet with the teacher association leadership group. We like, if you have a PTA president group, we like to meet with them. And the other thing that we learned during COVID is that sometimes you get more participation if you also offer some of these things via Zoom. We used to get 5 or 6 people show up to a community meeting because who wants to come out after dinner and speak. But when we started offering 6:30, click on here and you can be part of this, we doubled and tripled it. So we would work with you. You know your community better. What most districts are doing right now is a combination of both. For the people who like to talk face to face, and then have for those who can't get out. All of that gets put together, and we create an 8 to 10 bullet point profile of your next leader. And we use that profile for everything. We use it to recruit. We use it in our posting notices. We use it when people call us and ask us about the job. We develop our screening questions around your profile, and we create the way we assess the candidates. When we come in and work with you and prepare you for your interviews with the candidates, we will help you develop questions around the profile. We will give you rubrics to use that would match up with the 8 characteristics and however many they are. That's how important that profile is. That's how we know who to go out and recruit. And sometimes we're challenged a little bit. Hey, don't those profiles always turn out kind of the same? You want a good communicator, someone who's collaborative. And yes, there are certain characteristics that come out on almost all of them. But every time we do this, right, there's 2 or 3 that are very unique for your community. We had a district that was really divided politically and divided on their board. And they were open and honest about it. And they wanted the #1 bullet to be a uniter. You know, so yeah, we had collaborator, communicator, but in that particular, I had never had uniter come up as one. So that's just an example that we work really hard to make sure it's a unique profile for you. Then we hit phase 3. Now we're recruiting. This is where Todd and I and our firm really excel. We do, as Todd mentioned in his slide, we have all kinds of associations we're going to post at. Some are Wisconsin, some are national, some are tied to racial and ethnic diversity, and we'll hit all of those. But what we really start to do is pick up the phone and start calling our network. And we have people throughout the entire nation. And we work really hard to share the profile and then start working. In Green Bay, to give you an example of this, of the 6 candidates we presented to the board on our slate, 5 of the 6 were people that we personally recruited. In other words, we don't just rely on hoping the right people will answer an ad. We know what we're looking for. We went out and found them. I like to say your next superintendent might not even know they want to be the superintendent here right now. Till we call them up and say, do I have a job for you to consider? So we really work that. And it's not like we have some old boys school of, old candidates that we, bring out every search. That's not what we're talking about when we say we use our network. We have deep networking into universities, different organizations, and people like Todd, who knows the superintendents of Wisconsin, especially in this area. So we'll recruit like crazy. We'll then take, there's no magic number. If we get, I think in both Green Bay and Waunakee, we got 25 to 30 applications, which is really good for these days. So we'll look at all of those. We'll pick out maybe 12 to 13 people to bring in, and Todd and I will do the initial screening. And we'll use that profile to match up. And after that, we will make a decision amongst ourselves. Who do we want to bring to the board? We'll then ask you to call a special meeting. It'll be an important meeting. We will present the board of candidates. We will give you all the information you need about them. We will give you some ideas on how to write good questions and how to prepare for your first interview. And usually round 1 of the board interviews is you as a board interviewing. Sometimes it's on site. Some boards like to meet, off site. And you would interview those 6 folks and match them up and assess them using your profile. If all goes well, you'll have a tough time deciding who the finalists are, but hopefully you will decide on 2 works best. We've had as many as a board come back and say we needed to bring 4 people back. And I've had 2 boards recently say someone just was so high above the others. We just want to bring her or him back and make sure we're not missing anything. So that can go anyway, but mostly it's 2. You'll come back and do a second interview. And usually the second interview is more casual. Lots of boards like to do it as part of a dinner. Maybe you get the private room in a local restaurant, you invite them there. It's a little more casual, a little bit more getting to know them as a person, but also you'll have questions from the first interview that you'll want to follow up on. So that's the second issue. here comes one of those individualization pieces. Some boards like to only be involved in the search. You are the ones who are elected, you are the representatives, and if things go well, you'll get the praise, and if things don't go well, you'll get the blame. So a lot of boards like to just handle this. Other boards, and it's about 50-50, like to bring in some extra input at the end. And so if you want to do extra input at the end, there's several ways we can talk to you about how to do it. There's the traditional day in the district where a candidate would come back and meet with multiple groups. And we'd work with you on how to get back about how people viewed those candidates. A little bit more discreetly and a little bit more controlled is when you would help us select maybe 2 interview groups that include some parents, some teachers, some non-parent community members, and so on. And we train those people, give them some questions, let them interview the 2 finalists, and then they would submit to you written input. So there's a couple of ways, and there's a couple of hybrids of that too. So that would be a conversation we'd have with you. And then finally, we just go ahead and help you prepare the contract if you need help with that, help you create a public announcement, and we stay with you. One thing about our service at no extra charge, Todd and I will mentor your new superintendent for an entire year, just to give support, because even if we bring you an experienced superintendent, they're not experienced here. And so there's always a transition, and we want to be there to support.
This slide speaks to the timeline that you had put up in your RFP. And so this is a timeline that's my understanding that Randy's on all of next year. And so the goal is to hire someone by the start of the new year. And that's not unusual. We did that in another search of ours, and it worked out really well because it allowed for a lot of transition time, which was wonderful, a lot of onboarding time. So this timeline is something that we are accustomed to. All the phases that Joe had spoken to, phases 1 through 5, are embedded in this timeline. We will have a board meeting with you, and we bring a planning, calendar, and we would lay all this out to make certain it works with your schedules. So there's times when we're going to have to get together. There's times when we want to make certain that we're doing exactly what the board's wishes are, and so we would work out a calendar with you that would encompass all of what you see on the screen right there, which is phases 1 through 5. I'm going to pause here and see, are there any questions regarding the timeline that you may have, or anything that Joe had mentioned so far?
In terms of things that have been mentioned so far, one of the numbers he had thrown out there were 95% of your clients were high satisfaction. I am one of those consumers who likes to click on the other 5% just to see where the failure, where did things go wrong exactly.
I
And I
have the
realized
answer
this
for you.
yeah.
Where, and I know this is going to sound like a little bit of a cop-out, but it's absolute truth. We can't control the candidates. We do our best to make sure if you're a finalist, are you all in? If they say we want you, are you all in? Because if you're not, if there's any hesitations, now's the time to drop out. Where we get dinged is the couple of times when we've had finalists be selected, and then the finalist decides they don't want to take the job. We somehow get blamed for that. Maybe there are some things we could do better to prevent that, but we do our very best to make sure that doesn't happen.
Okay.
It hasn't happened with this team.
Okay.
Any other questions on this timeline or anything that Joe had shared so far?
And we'll finish up. I know we started a little late, so it's
You did.
okay if I.
Taking those 3 minutes.
Okay.
Well, you got about 7 minutes left.
Okay. All right, so our price is 19.5 is our core, and we do our best to really lay out any of the extras you'll have, so there's no surprises at the end. We are able to keep the advertising fairly low, even though we do national. We have just some minor administrative expenses. The survey costs $350. We are going to require no travel expenses between us. If we bring you out of town candidates, that's a different story. So you've got to fly them in and put them up. So we can talk about that if and when that is there. There's no way to predict that in advance. And now we're gonna wrap it up with just some things again that we want you to remember when we leave. We're on call throughout this process. Call me at any time. Call Todd. We give you regular updates. We'll give you if you like them weekly, if you like them, just when they're needed, we'll do it however you want. You will not see surprises at the end. There's a 2-year guarantee. If somehow the person comes in and only makes it through a year and it's not a good match, we'll come back and do the whole thing over. So that's a 2-year guarantee, and we will mentor your new superintendent. Last page, why us? I think most of this we've covered, so I'll do it real fast. We have a great record in Wisconsin. We know your area very, very deeply. We have great recruiting resources. We love our combo of national and local. We will customize this for you. And we keep long relationships with the superintendents we place and the boards that we keep. We get lots of multiple business 6-8 years down the line when the board's looking again, if possible. So if you hire us, you kind of can't get rid of us. That's a good. Right.
Yeah.
That question, as you guys are, I don't know how many searches you've done over the last couple of years. Are you finding most of those being within Wisconsin that you're placing, or
The Wisconsin searches, the searches for Wisconsin superintendent?
yeah, because Wisconsin's a political.
It's an active state challenge.
It's an active state.
Yeah.
Are you seeing people from out of state welcoming that, or?
It really depends on the type of search we're running. So if the school board wants to have more of a regional search, so here in Wisconsin, Midwest, then a lot of those who are applying are aware of the politics that are at play here in Wisconsin and Midwest. Some boards may want a national search, and so when there's a national search and we are recruiting nationally, we make them aware of some of what they are going to encounter, because we don't, to Joe's point, we want people who are going to accept the job, and we don't want them to, oh my word, what happened? This is something you didn't share with me. So we spend a great deal of time making certain there's a thorough understanding of what we are in our environment. I think for your particular community, you have a huge referendum that you have passed. You have an operational referendum you have passed. It's a growing community, a vibrant downtown area. You're right next to Madison. You're in a portion of the state where you can zoom up to the north. It's a desirable area, and Randy gave you a long runway. Thank you, Randy, for doing that, and that will allow you to get a lot of good candidates. And we will be able to get some decent candidates that you will be able to say, we'll be able to bring 5 to 6 forward, and we'll say any of them can run the district. And now it's just a matter of fit. And so the people who are going to apply to this know what they're getting into and can see the trajectory of success. I mean, you have buildings that are yet to be built and open in 2026. That's a great position for a new superintendent to be in.
Just a prediction, because we have no way of knowing, but I think for your community, this is going to probably be dominated by Wisconsin educators who know about your community and your district.
The people who I'm talking with already, 2 in particular, they're from Wisconsin.
How long has BWP been in operation?
Since the early 1970s. The actual firm BWP formed in the early 2000s. It was 3 separate firms in different places in the nation, and they formed to become BWP in the early 2000s. But the real roots go all the way back to the 70s.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
John, do you mind if I ask a question?
No, go ahead.
So Brian, myself, and Tim in the back of the room are all a part of the administrative team.
Mhm.
How does the administrative team play a role in the development of the profile? we talked about.
We will meet the cabinet or team, whatever your title is. You will be one of the focus groups that we spend a good deal of time with. We listen really carefully because you guys know the position better than anybody. So your biggest contributions would be in that front end as we're developing profile. You will have your own focus group for however long you have to tell us this.
Okay, well, that could be a long. meeting.
That's okay. We've had long ones before. It tends to be a catharsis kind of thing, even when it's a very positive, effective district. People get in those meetings and every little thing they're hoping will change, comes out.
Well, we
But
just have folks
we're good
that
with-
share stuff.
yeah,
And that's good
We're very
information for us to have, Steve, because when we're recruiting candidates, that information is helpful. And when candidates have an understanding that we have a deep knowledge of the district, that builds confidence. So we're recruiting, like these guys are trying to sell us something they know. So spending time with the directors, assistant
we
cabinet is critical.
the two questions we get right away when someone calls us about the job, they want to know, you could probably guess the first one, how's the board? Because nothing is going to be more important, in the superintendent's success as the relationship with the board. But the second thing is, do they have a good team in that place? Because you're coming in new, even if you're a Wisconsin superintendent, you guys are the lifeline, especially the first year, so. We would want to know everything that you have to tell us.
And candidates will be curious to understand, what we know of the district, especially Randy's been here for a while, right? And so that's a different candidate right there that's going to be attracted to the district. It isn't, you're not going through 2-3 year superintendents. This is someone who's been there with stability. That's gonna draw a different.
Very good. Any other questions? Otherwise, I think we have to move on to our second.
Could you share your timeline for making your decision about which firm you're gonna go with?
We're gonna have discussion tonight and it may happen tonight.
Oh, okay.
Was that right? Maybe I'll sell to the public.
And it may, if people need to consider it, we have another meeting on Monday, but we're interested in making this decision too.
You bet.
Thank you.
Nice meeting you. Hey, thanks a lot. Have fun with that 9-year-old. Mine's 2.
Thanks for that.
Yeah, nice putting a face.
Yeah, there we go, yeah.
By the way, Brian has been.
He is
Really
awesome.
Yeah.
We sometimes don't get nearly as much help, prepping and knowing what to expect. He's good.
We make him help us a lot.
Nice meeting you. Thank you so much. Nice meeting you.
Great
presentation. Nice to meet you.
Okay.
Sorry you going in and out.
Joe. Thank you guys, Joe, Michelle. You want cameras after? No, I'm not.
You can turn it on.
Rebecca, are you catching Randy on the camera back there?
I am.
Yeah, come on in. We all know each other. It's all good. Maybe. So you guys can hear us. We'll get to the- Hello, Mike Ritchie. Judy, nice to meet you.
Mike and Judy.
Katie, nice to meet you. Joan, nice to meet you.
Perfect, thank you.
Mike Ritchie.
Mike.
Are you related to?
This is Brian. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
No, everyone asked.
I wonder if it was a son or something.
No, everyone is. Mike Ritchie.
Thank you.
Hi, darling.
Yeah. Sir, how you doing?
How are you? Mike Ritchie.
No problem.
Yep. Ready?
You're ready.
If that controller will operate the screen and you're all set.
And is it 20 minutes that we have?
So 30 minutes in total. Inclusive of the Q&A. So
Okay. That's tough. All right, ready? Yep. Well, thank you everyone for having us. My name is Mike Ritchie, and I have been with HYA for 5 years. And my background, just quickly, is I have been in education for 29 years. I'm sorry, 39 years, all in Wisconsin. 25 as a superintendent, and I'm currently on the maternal staff as an adjunct professor as well. And I also serve on the National Association of School Superintendents Executive Committee. So my whole background, education, all in Wisconsin.
I'm Scott Lynch, and very similar, just not quite as many years. I've been over 30, this is my 31st year in public education. I retired as a superintendent last year in June, and now I stayed retired for 6 days and became an interim superintendent in a small rural district in Waunakee, Wisconsin. Working for them, and I agreed to come back and mentor their high school principal to take over for another year. So I'll be back there again for the next school year. So like Mike said, we're both Wisconsin.
Oh, I don't know what happened. Oh, there we go. Back up one, please. So just about the firm, we've been in existence for over 35 years. We've done over 1,600 searches for school districts and state boards, national organizations. We have about 130 associates across the United States. We actually have 4 in Wisconsin that work for HYA. We have worked with districts of under 100 students. That was a charter school in Montana. The districts of over 640,000 students. That happens to be the Los Angeles school district. We did their search as well. And I just want to point out that we have a very strong partnerships with other organizations. And some of those organizations are AASA. We've done 2 searches for them actually. One of our actually Pat Newdecker retired from Wisconsin is associate for HYA. She was a past president for AASA. And so, and you can see that I'm serving on National Association of School Superintendents as well. So this slide represents, you know, why HYA. So when you look at this slide, and this is a 2-year snapshot of all the national firms that are out there, HYA does the most volume of searches. We average around 80 searches per year. And we also, our website, if you go to our website, you're going to see not just our searches posted, you're going to see all of the superintendent searches posted. So right now there's over 160 positions on our website as well. We have a very high satisfaction rate. The people we've hired stay in the position for quite some time. And then when you look at my track record, I've done about 25 searches, over 20 in Wisconsin. And everyone that I have placed so far in the last 5 years is still in their current position as well. We just did your neighboring district, Verona, a year ago as well. And this slide just represents our last 3 years of Wisconsin searches that we did. And then on the right, I just want to point out again that Scott and I have a is in order, and you know exactly when interviews are going to happen and when everything is scheduled as well. That planning, the planning meeting, but the timeline is your timeline, so you will adjust it any way you see fit as we go ahead and start those discussions for procedures and process. The process, 4 phases. We have the engage phase, the recruit phase, the select phase, and then we have the transition phase. And then throughout our presentation now, we'll talk about each of those phases individually.
All right, so the engage phase, the first thing we will do is the board planning meeting if we're selected to work with you folks, and we will work on what you want in this process. We work for you. You'll tell us what you want to do, and we will work on that. After the planning meeting, as you saw in the timeline, then we come through, we'll interview each of you individually to get your thoughts on the district and the direction for it. You will identify what individuals within the district or community that you want us to interview individually. And we will reach out to them and make arrangements to set up a time to talk with them. You will identify the focus groups that we will, and we'll get into that a little bit more here in the next slide, but the focus groups that you want us to reach out to and create forums. The community forums are part of that focus group. And all of that comes down to, in addition to the stakeholder survey, which is included in the base price that we've presented. And that survey is something we'll talk about in the slide down. All of that put together leads to your leadership profile report. And that will give you a summary of the survey, the selection criteria, and it will help us determine who's the best fit for your district. A little bit on how we facilitate our focus groups. First of all, we're very versatile and flexible. Everything of this nature used to be done face to face. Then COVID hit, and we found out that Zoom can be an effective way to do some of these focus groups and community forums. Various locations, you pick the spots in the community, or if it's via Zoom, obviously we can do that, facilitate that through our home offices as well. Flexible meeting times, Mike and I have both done these mornings, afternoon, evening. We spent on weekends. In fact, we both have found a Zoom meeting on Sunday night has been some of the best time to engage our parent focus groups. 7 o'clock Sunday night seems to be a pretty popular time. The search I just finished up in March, that was the best attended community forum that we had. Some of the different groups, maybe you will determine the groups. We have high school students involved there. We kind of insist on getting hearing the thoughts of your high school students. Sometimes they're brutally honest, and they have a good feeling for what's going on in your district and what they'd like to see. And I think that's a good way to go about hearing about inside the district. But other groups may include your parents, teaching staff, support staff, administrators, business partners in the communities, civic groups, booster clubs, PTOs, and anything else that you might want to put a group together. We can make that happen. Finally, our engage phase, we consider it to be diverse and inclusive. We seek to reach all of the members of the community and stakeholders. We don't want anybody feeling like we left them out of this process. So if you say this is an important group, we will make it part of that. And we also have in the past coordinated for various languages if we need to do that as well for the community language. So a little bit about our stakeholder survey, research-based, norm referenced. You'll get 2 things out of this really. You'll get an analysis of the state of your district, and you'll also get a leadership profile from by each constituent group. And we like to point out, as you look at the dots on these, the closer the dots are, the closer the groups are to being on the same page. Not that that's a good thing or a bad thing. It just tells you they're all thinking about the same thing. The other thing that this will do for you is provide a roadmap for you as the board and your next leader to see where things, where you might need some areas for growth for the district, or a good roadmap to get off to a good start with your next leader. Slide, please. This is just we're not going to click on this, but you can see an example of a leadership profile report on your link on the online presentation. If you click on that link in the bottom right-hand corner, you will see an example of what you'll get out of the leadership profile report that we provided. Recruiting advantage. 90% of our associates are retired superintendents, such as Mike and I, experts in the education. We have strong networks throughout the nation, throughout the state, for Mike and I in particular. 75% of our superintendents placed have been recruited by an HYA associate. Our website has 25,000 plus page views per month. We post every superintendent vacancy in the nation, in addition to the ones that we are currently conducting. So it's a high traffic website for people looking for a superintendent job. And I think a good resource for those looking for jobs to look at. Currently, I think Mike already mentioned this, we have 21 HYA-led searches and another 140 openings throughout the nation. And again, a link to the HYA website if you'd like to see all of that and how they're posted. Mike has personally represented HYA at the AASA convention in San Antonio this February. He was also at the National Association of School Boards in Orlando, working in recruiting the networking booth on the floor, and marketing materials for jobs that we currently have open. So there's other representatives there, but Mike personally has been at those two meetings this past year.
And we were both in Milwaukee at the convention as well with our booth. We met some of you and you came by our booth in Milwaukee as well. So this next slide just continues with recruiting, and the upper left-hand slide, we use Frontline. So when people apply, they apply through Frontline, and that's our software package. And so we as an associate, we can see every single search that HYA is conducting and everyone that applies. So we have access to every single applicant, which gives us a very strong recruiting tool to use in all of our searches. And then we also have potential candidates create a profile, and this one was, I think I took this a couple of weeks ago. Right now, there's 622 people in that database that are looking for superintendent jobs. And we can set it so we can look at just Wisconsin, just Midwest, districts under 10,000, under 5,000. So we can kind of set that, again, just a recruiting tool that really helps us track our candidates. So one of the questions we always get is how many candidates come from in-state, how many come from out of state? So I'm just taking my 6 of my most recent searches here, and you can just kind of see, I think 5 were from Wisconsin, the way it looks, and you can see their enrollment, and then you can see the number of applicants, the number of out of state, and then we talk about our slate. So we'll bring you 6, 8, 10 of our strongest, best fit candidates. You will pare that down to, if you want to interview 6, you'll pare it down. So those are the top, like 6 of the top slate for each of those districts. So you can see a high volume did come from out of state. And then when you look at who was placed, so the Fond du Lac was a Wisconsin hire, the Whitewater was an Illinois hire, Monroe was a Wisconsin hire, the Verona was from Madison actually, and then the Richmond was in Minnesota, and then the one in Littleton, Colorado was actually from Indiana. So we get a great cross-reference of in-state and out-of-state applicants. We'll help you with your advertising package. Obviously, we're going to post it within Wisconsin. If you post it on the Wisconsin Leadership the Wisconsin School Leadership Career Center, it goes to a number of different associations in the state. We would also encourage you to post it in some other neighboring states as well. And then we can talk about the planning meeting. We'll talk about any national package that we would like to see posted as well. Our select phase, we will conduct a screening interview with all applicants. We actually spend about a half hour to 40 minutes with everybody that applies. We'll present a tiered slate to you. So in other words, we'll have tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3. Tier 1 will match your profile report, and it would be the best fit for your district. Tier 2, quality superintendent possibility, but we maybe found something in their background, their current, maybe the former job, something didn't come up. And then tier 3 is just not a good fit. But you can move any of those people around, but you will ask us questions about why is this person in tier 2 and not tier 1. So we have that discussion in our meeting with you as well. We'll prepare you for the board interviews. We'll help you design the questions for you as well. We will coordinate the day in the district. We feel it's really important. Once you get down to your top 2 or top 3, they spend 1 full day in your district. Really get out, go into the schools, talk to staff, talk to students, talk to parents, talk to business people, get out in your community and see what it's all about. We'll conduct the reference checks. We do blind reference checks. We know the people they list are going to give them a glowing reference. So we will also do blind reference checks as well. Again, we'll help you with those final interview questions, and then we'll coordinate the final interviews with you. And then at the end, we do a very comprehensive third-party background check on your final or your loan candidate. Some boards will prefer to do that background check on their top 2 or top 3 as well. So we gathered feedback from your stakeholders. Very simply, we create a Google form with a QR code. And when we have these stakeholders meet and greets the day in the district, we'll ask, the stakeholders can give you input by saying, we'll ask two questions. What strength would this candidate bring to the district? What do you like about this person? What would concern you if this person were hired? As soon as they type the response in, it goes directly to the board. It goes into your board portal, which we'll talk about in a second. So you'll get instant feedback. We never have the stakeholders rank the candidates. This is your search, and so we emphasize to them that you hire, but they want your input. So the things that you will see in that leadership profile report is coming from your stakeholders. This Google form is coming, responses coming from your stakeholders as to the strengths and what concerns they might have. And then you'll get a document like this as they type it in. You'll get the strengths on the left, challenges on the right, and then this was one from I did from Aurora, Colorado. You can see it on the bottom, the different languages that we also did this Google Doc in as well. So the board portal, we talked a little bit about the board portal. This is basically, think of it as your website. You'll have it's password protected, but we don't like to email board members all this information. So you'll have your own website where we'll put everything in this portal that pertains to the search. You will see every application as they come in. Once we download them, you will see them, and we put them in one document for you. So if it's a 30 or 40 page application, one click, you can scroll and see the entire thing. You're not going from document to document to document. It's very convenient for you. You have it 24/7. So wherever you are, if you want, you've got an hour to kill because you're watching, maybe you had a baseball practice or just having some waiting for something. You have your laptop, you can go in and see who's applied. All the schedules, the interview questions, you can see in the top right, those are the different categories that you'll have in your portal. And then we kind of break it down, those 6 categories as well, so you can kind of see what would be in each of those categories in the portal. This is very convenient for school board members. We have a transition dashboard, which is part of the fee. It's no extra cost for this. Again, we want that person to be very successful. So the first 100 days, we actually, once the person's hired, they'll meet with one of us and someone from our ECRA office, which is our analytics and research, and we'll help them create a dashboard. And they'll take that profile report and they'll look at maybe what they need to work on. And then if the board has any expectations or goals for them, they can put those in there, and then they can kind of measure how they're doing and they can kind of chart it. The other things that are up there is created for each district. So whatever you want to see in that dashboard, you'll be able to have in there. But again, it becomes a great roadmap for that person, and it allows that new superintendent to benchmark something from day one and then continue the progress as they go through their career here.
So just kind of wrapping things up here, our price proposal is $18,500. This does include the HYA survey, advertising on the HYA website, social media, on the NASS website, and the transition dashboard for 1 year. Travel costs $1,000 to $2,500. It's about an hour and a half drive for us down here, so that really depends on how many times we come down to meet in person or if we do things via Zoom. As Mike talked about with the advertising, you determine what kind of advertising you want. Some districts are fine with the national presence on the HYA website and advertising in state. You may decide that you want more advertising outside the national avenue, and we can certainly get that for you as well. Comprehensive background check, that is an additional fee if you want to do that on your finalist or your couple of finalists. And then Mike touched on transition services, so I won't go into that anymore. And then finally, on the last slide.
And you guys do personality profiles and so forth?
We do not. We don't do that. Some districts do that, I don't know, but we do not do that.
So finally, client guarantee. The person we place departs from the position during the first year under any circumstance, professional, personal, we will recruit new candidates for the board at no additional cost, with the exception of travel or advertising and due diligence expenses, or within the first 2 years of Majority of the board is still in place and departure is due to dissatisfaction and not personal or health reasons. Finally, the superintendent appointed will not be presented as a candidate by HYA to another organization. To result in resignation within 5 years of employment. So we will not recruit anybody that will be placed here for 5 years.
I'm gonna stop my clock. 19 minutes and 42 seconds. That's a lot of information. It really is. That's why we give you a hard copy as well in the folder to kind of go through and click on some of those things. You can see some of those live links. I would encourage you to go to our website as well, because there's a ton of information about the process on our website.
So where are you located? You're up north area?
I live in Waunakee.
I actually live closer to Marshfield. I was in Stratford School District for 18 years. And I retired. My wife teaches early childhood special ed in Marshfield, so we speak on difference a little bit.
I thought sorry.
Go ahead, you jump, you got it,
Actually, I didn't put my hand up,
You-
so.
but you went first, so go ahead.
I thought I saw in the fee schedule that there was additional on-site consulting days. Is that accurate? And that's
It
ask,
is-
how
it is.
often are people using them? And then how many days would you classically see people in using them and what for? So
I've
that's
done, I
a
think,
three-part
28
question. Sorry.
surgeries total so far, and they've used them twice. And the only reason they used them was very, very large districts, Aurora, Colorado, 42,000 kids. And they insisted on, I think we did 38 or 39 focus groups. Normally, we would do 12 to 15 focus groups, but they insist, they speak over 160 languages in that district. And so they really wanted to reach out to different people. The board has to approve those extra days. We will 99% of the time finish a search within the 4 days that are allowed. Your neighboring district, Verona, we did that within the 4 days, and that wasn't even close to being a problem. So almost guarantee you, unless you say to us, we want 15 extra focus groups.
I had a question about your project manager.
Yep.
And so. How does that person function as opposed to your involvement?
That person is behind the scenes, as is Michelle. So Danielle, what her main responsibility is she's the person who will get the job posted. Once we tell her where to post it, she gets posting done. She will also set up the front line. That's where the applications come in. So she'll do that as well. And then the survey is a big piece of her work as well. So especially if it's in multiple languages. So English and Spanish come with your base fee. That's included, but anything in addition, there's a fee. So she sets all that up as well. And then if there are any issues throughout the search, she's involved in that process as well. If anyone calls the home office, she's going to answer the phone.
And that's you two who narrowed the list down to what's the best match for Waunakee.
Yeah, Scott and I will do that, and then you have every right to move someone from right to left or whatever, based on what we cover. And the other thing that the internal candidates, we like to treat as external, so they go through the entire process as well.
So Brian, myself, and Tim in the back of the room are part of the administrative team of the district. Can you touch on a little bit how you involve the administrators either in your engaged process, or where does the current team fit into the process?
There's two ways districts do this. So in that planning meeting, we might determine, let's interview the administrators individually, or we might want to do a group of administrators. So, but you might want to break that group out. So you might want to have your cabinet and your district office administrators in one group, your principals or associate principals in another group. And then you've got directors, you might want to have in another group. That's all determined in that planning meeting with the board. And then it's up to the board as to if the administrators or the cabinet team will actually sit with the board in the process. Again, smaller districts, it's very common. Larger districts, it's not very common. So it just depends again on the district. The day in the district, you have a key piece of that. You will spend at least an hour as a group with each candidate. And again, you'll give that feedback back to the board as well. If you're a building level principal, those are the individuals that will lead the tour of the building. Now, when they're here for the full day, and we like to get them into at least 3 buildings. So if you have 15 or 12 buildings, it's impossible to get them into all the buildings, but we want to get them into an elementary school, a middle school, a high school, and then obviously you have multiple elementary schools. So you've got, normally the finalists would be 3, they would go into 3 separate elementary schools, they wouldn't go into the same school. We try to get as many schools as we can. And you can, and some administrators lead the community tour as well. So they will put them in a car, drive around, it'll be a central office person, someone who knows the district, that can answer their questions would be in the car.
Oh, Jim, another bus tour. I see it coming. Someone knows how to get bus tour. We'll make it good if that's what they're at.
Other questions?
Okay. So obviously from your extensive searches, you put together a lot of best practices. How would you make us feel as a community that we're not a cookie cutter part of your existing process? What modifications to the process exist that would show us that it's been customized to our local region?
Great question. We like to think that all of our searches are customized. And again, that's why in that planning meeting, you have so much say as to what we do in that meeting. So that's one of the areas. And I think some of the things that we do just sets us apart. So we might do them for all searches, but I don't do them as cookie cutters. So the recruiting is one example. Most of the people that we place are recruited. I think there's a stat that said 75% of the people we hire are recruited. They would not apply unless we call them. We call city superintendents. That's what we do. And so that, again, that's, I wouldn't say that's cookie cutter. It's something that would be to your district. So what we'll do in your case, we would not call the city superintendent of a school district of 200 kids. We would focus on, your enrollment or even go a little bit higher because this is a premier job and it's a great location. So it will attract people, but we'll make sure that we, help them determine where they want to come. The posting, we work with your communications person, we'll work with your administrative team, we'll work with your administrative assistant. We'll get that posting so it's geared just to your district. And it's very appealing when people see the posting out there. So anything, we'll also talk in the planning meeting about what makes you different, what makes your district unique and different. And so we'll want to hear from you so we can get that out as well. So we don't like just to say all the searches are the same because they're so different. And the candidates are going to research the district. As much as you want to research every single candidate, they're going to research the district and they're going to want to know how the board functions. They're going to want to see your annual report. They're going to want to see your test scores. They're going to want to look at your history of your staff. Is the staff a staff that turns over a lot or do they stay here a lot? They're going to want to look, how long was the last superintendent here? How about the cabinet members? How about the principals? What's their tenure like? So they're going to turn this district upside down as well, just to make sure they're the right fit for this board and this district as well. And then that leadership profile report, that goes on your website, it goes on our website. It's actually approved by the board at a public board meeting. One of our times here, we come to your meeting in open session and we present that report to you. We are the messenger. So, but we tell you what your stakeholders said about your district. And we are honest and it's in the report. And so that report can be seen by not only all your stakeholders in your community, it can be seen by anyone who's thinking of applying for this job. And it does become a great roadmap for them because they can focus on the strengths, but every district has challenges. And so, how do you want to tackle those challenges? But it tells them up front, these are the things that they're going to have to work on in the near future.
Any other questions? Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah.
Good luck.
Are we getting extra ones for Ted?
And they're each here. I can put them over though.
Perfect.
Nice meeting everyone.
Nice.
We have a long night ahead of you, so we're gonna be on our way.
That's the thing.
Good luck on that visit to Colorado.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us tonight. You bet. You go ahead.
Okay, all right. Yeah.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Be nice. Take care. Yeah, you too.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we'll kind of get, once you get settled and everybody gets kind of back and settled, you guys get the.
This is the.
Yeah.
I don't know. If TV is always.
Well, we can flip it to the agenda if you prefer,
Oh,
if you prefer not to watch yourself on screen.
They have
I can
neighbors.
look over those if you want. Oh, all right,
Yeah.
very good. Meet and greet as you go. Asking them.
Sure. Okay. I can- we'll give me an opportunity to walk
Hi,
around.
Dawn.
I'm sitting for a while. Hello, hi. It's me. Get my steps in for the day.
And Mark.
Hi, Mark. I'm Kristen.
Okay.
This is Todd. That's Ted, yeah. Mark,
Yep, thank you.
way over there. We make that word, Jen.
Could be right here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well,
Want to see what that was anyway, so.
when the two of you are comfortable, we've got everyone here and we'll let you kick it off from there.
All right. Well, good evening. I hope you're not tired of this yet. We figured you'd be kind of pointed out by now, so we're just gonna talk with you tonight, and you have our proposal in front of you. And we'll point you to the right page when it's time to do that. My name is Kristen Taylor, and I am a search consultant for McPherson and Jacobson. I'm also right now the Director of Human Resources in Waunakee School District. And I am retiring on June 30th. Well, kind of retiring. This is Van Stalzen, Dr. Van Stalzen. He doesn't retire very well either. I will be the part-time Director of Human Resources in Reedsburg when I retire. Because the superintendent was the superintendent in Waunakee and couldn't find a Director of Human Resources, so I'm gonna help him out for a little bit.
So I'm Dan Stalzen. I'm excited to be here in Waunakee. I retired as a superintendent of schools. I served as a superintendent of schools for 10 years and then an interim for a year in a district. I served as principal. I served 17 years as a high school principal and 3 years as an assistant principal and 4 years as a teacher, all in Wisconsin. So I started doing these searches a couple of years ago. We do these on a part-time. We only take a few searches because I've also, now I'm a full-time assistant professor at Carthage College. I teach in the education department there. So that's what I do. We do a couple of these searches. We did 3 last year, Waunakee, Columbus, and Wilmot. Wilmot was I was serving as interim superintendent. They asked me to do the search through there. So that was it. This year we've done 1 so far. We just finished 1. And we're hopefully going to do this one here too, but we won't take 5 or 6 or anything. We'd like to just be able to give the school district that we're working with a great attention. We would be the 2. I mean, if you would hire
Yeah,
us
you did us.
from the first day to we've done searches before. We did Columbus last year. We just finished Swallow. So you would have us from start. You probably get sick of us from start to finish. So yeah, that's who we are. We work for McPherson and Jacobson. And we decided not to use a PowerPoint because we find it more natural when we're doing it. We've done it both ways, but when we actually don't use a PowerPoint, it just kind of make eye contact with you and go over our packet here. So you do have a selection packet here and how we binder and how we go about this process. So McPherson Jacobson is a national search firm. So they've been in existence for over 35 years. The only way a national search firm, and I know the other ones are probably national search firms too. The only way you would last as a national search firm is by doing good searches, because word of mouth is the best advertising there is. It's a national search firm, but we're both Wisconsin people. We represent Wisconsin. We do searches in Wisconsin. Our whole careers have been in Wisconsin. So keep that in mind, but we will, it is a national search firm, so we will recruit nationally too, but generally, usually it is someone in the area. I mean, someone in Wisconsin or Illinois sometimes, that usually it takes a position in Wisconsin. So if you look through this packet here, I'm looking at page 3 here. We have a process that's probably similar to others, but maybe ours is maybe just a little more unique. But we really recruit people. The person we just placed in our last search, which was a smaller district, that was someone that we reached out to early on and said, hey, it's something we might be interested in. And that person ended up being a person. About 20 applicants for the last search we did. We had 23 for the Columbus search, and Maggie Oconomowoc search. She was serving as the interim superintendent of Oconomowoc at the time. Now she's on director of human resources there, but that we had, I think, close to 30 applicants for that position. Oconomowoc, so Oconomowoc maybe just a little larger than Waunakee, probably close.
It's about the same size as Waunakee, you could expect.
But that was the search we did, and and last year. So if you look on page, before you can see a little bit about us, and if you look on page 12, it kind of outlines the search. So should you hire us, as to be first, you have the proposal that has the cost. It will probably be less than that because our expenses are not really much. I don't know, depending on how many days you have us do stakeholder group meetings, we probably would stay overnight. We're not far from your hour from here or so. It's probably a little farther than that, but so the expenses would probably be less than they during the estimate. Besides that, we see what the costs are for a search. And should you hire us, we meet with you right away and start to establish what we think the characteristics you would need a superintendent in this particular district. We establish a timeline. This is awesome that you are doing this now. You're starting on this now, showing us that you really are trying to be very conscientious about this and really think about having a good timeline for process and being able to, because it is very competitive, as you know, for superintendent. There are she's been called a couple times to be an interim. I get called still to be an interim, and I'm not really interested in doing that right now. But because there's such a shortage, and there will be a lot of turnover even in Wisconsin. So kudos to you for starting the process early on. So we would establish a timeline with you early on and determine advertising venues. So we've been through this process. I'm going to show you, just to pass out some things here. This is examples of brochures that we developed. That's all part of in your costs. Some different searches. The other thing I'm showing you is a stakeholder part of the process. We with stakeholder groups to develop what's the kind of the good, the bad, the ugly, quite honestly, of the school district in terms of perceptions of stakeholders. And we produce a report that generally the board would put online and be very transparent about the whole process. So here's a Columbus one, an Oconomowoc one, Wilmot one, and a Swallow one.
So if you select our firm, the first thing we would do is meet with you and determine the timeline. Assuming you want probably identified by December, January at the latest, right? So we work backwards and set your timeline. The board meets and defines the characteristics that you want in your next leader. And we use those characteristics along with the demographics of the district, the really cool things that are going on here to create that colorful brochure. It's also online. It's not like there's a lot of places to use a hard copy brochure anymore, but so it's online and accessible to candidates across the nation. We do then send it out to specific candidates that were headhunted, basically, right? And then once you have those key characteristics in the advertising, we get that posting up and then we start recruiting and drawing attention to the position. The next thing we do is hold stakeholders, and those are in person. We hold as many as we need to get as many voices heard in the district as possible. It's important to not hold them all during the day. Some of them have to be at night. People are working. It's nice if you can have them on different days, because if everybody, there's basketball game on Wednesday night or Thursday night, that nobody's coming because they're going to the basketball game. And then we take all of that stakeholder. If somebody can't come in person, we follow it up with an online stakeholder group. We ask 4 questions in that stakeholder group. The first is, what's great about Waunakee as a community? Then the second is, what's great about Waunakee as a school district? And then the third thing is, what characteristic or what do you need in a superintendent from stakeholders? And then the last one is, what do you think the challenges are for a new superintendent? Some Swallow, which we just finished, said that, they have like a pending budget clip. So that was a theme in the feedback from their stakeholders. So then we put all of that stakeholder feedback together. It does get published after the board reviews it. So the board reviews it and then it's published in one of these hard copy books, and it's also put online.
So it's anonymous, so the person says something like me, and we edit it so we're not identifying specific people. Or if they're in a program, we do that, we edit it. We're looking for themes. If you look at the actual examples of the reports, you do have examples of what you say, but what are the themes? One person said something not as important as if you're seeing themes. That when you, the stakeholders could be a group of parents, could be a group of staff, could be a group of students. We've done groups where we met with students. We found extremely valuable to get input from students on it. They think characters of a superintendent should be in the positive district. And so themes, and we publish the results there. However the board wants, the board to decide they want to put it online. We recommend that. We recommend a very transparent process. But we work with the board. We work for you. We work for you as the board. Want to really tailor the search to what your needs are.
We're going to encourage transparency though, because part of this process is that you're going to want to build community commitment and trust in your process. And if you do that and you're transparent through the process, your final candidate, everybody will be, more likely everybody will be, they did a great job. This was really good. We knew it. We got updates along the way. We had our voice heard. That's really important stuff when you are hiring a new superintendent. The other piece that you want that stakeholder feedback for is, while you're coming up with the big umbrella characteristics, though that stakeholder feedback really helps you design interview questions to get answers about the themes that we found in your community, so that you're not just representing what the board thought the new superintendent should be, but also what the stakeholder voices were most concerned about and prioritized in that process. So it's not just a survey to pretend people have a voice, but we're going to actually encourage you to use those big things that come out of stakeholder feedback to design interview questions, so that when you're vetting the candidates through the interview process, that you're getting a tight connection.
And so we're now at page 2 still. Recruiting and attracting. Well, the advertising, you can see example of that, but it's going to be advertised a lot of different places. There'll be an email sent from Kirsten Jacobson to anybody who's ever applied for a position, just informing them that there's this vacancy. So that's very, very powerful. The real essence of McPherson Jacobs is we're gonna recruit candidates. We're gonna find talent that fit the needs of this district. And that's how it turned out for Swallow. I will tell you that we did the Oconomowoc search last year. She was involved in that. I was involved in another person with that. And the 3 finalists all got 3 superintendent positions in really, really good suburban Milwaukee area districts where so that was interesting. Our 3 final candidates were people who ended up getting jobs in other places like that. And that's really it. We know the district. We want to know the district, we have a relationship, but you would be able to call people and say, I think the Waunakee position would be a good fit for you. You have the good, it's not just advertising and seeing who, and it's not just, some of these other firms will do 5, 6, 7, maybe even 8 searches at a time. That's not us. That's not what we want to just do 1 or 2 to be able to really tailor it, not just a stable of candidates that would in place. The other, right? The pool for Swallow will be different than the pool for Waunakee. Size and demographics, etc. So we appreciate that.
So one of the other differences between us and probably some of the other firms is they will rely on their candidate pool. So anybody who's applied for a position before, or that's who they're advertising to versus using their networks across Wisconsin. So I'm part of several professional networks. I am part of a alumni group from the University of Wisconsin-Madison with people who finished their PhDs and so we have between Vance and I, we have very deep networks across Wisconsin to be able to recruit. You'll see on our LinkedIn pages and those kinds of things. Waunakee's looking for a superintendent and just reaching out to a different pool of candidates, not just the same people who apply for every opening. Some people have a salary range they look for and then they apply for it. Some people just want a superintendency, any superintendency, and so they apply for it. But the most important thing you have to do is to find a highly qualified person that's the right fit for Waunakee. So that has the right personality, has the right understanding of your mission and vision.
In the Waunakee superintendent position would be an attractive position. One of the main, well, first of all, it's proximity to Madison. But second of all, you had a longstanding superintendent. That's one of the things you look for when you were applying for jobs. And you had a longstanding superintendent. Was there a superintendent that stayed for a while? So you must have had a good relationship with the board. And I think your superintendent's been 15 years in the same role. And you've had, long in the history of this, you've had some longstanding superintendents that have been here. So that's really a positive thing. When I would apply for superintendent jobs, I would look at that. And I would look at that a lot. But instead, you just push your revolving door. The superintendent position.
So as we get candidates, then Vance and I start to do the vetting. And it's the vetting that's the most important. We don't just call the references, but we call the references of their references. And do you know anybody else I might talk to? Or, hey, I know somebody who used to work with them 2 districts ago. I want to check what they think of this.
When they apply, they say they give you permission to do a background check, which means very extensive background check, not just calling the references, but calling a lot of other people, find out as much as you can about the candidates.
And sometimes it takes 2 or 3 deep before you hear something that's not great. Really, when's the last time you put somebody on your reference list that you weren't confident was going to give you a good reference, right? So we dig pretty deep. Then we also talk to the candidates at length and interview them. We'll have their application and they'll have answered questions around your key characteristics. They'll say, this is why I need this one. This is why I need this one. And we'll dig a little deeper there. And as we get to the end of the closing of the posting, then we start to kind of sift and winnow through the candidates and say, this is a definite, they should interview this person. Then we kind of make this could be a backup candidate if there's not enough really solid number 1 definitely interview. And then maybe not candidates. And usually it's because we found something out through our vetting that you don't want that baggage. It's probably not that they're not a good superintendent. It's that you may not want to, if they left their last district because of a I don't know, conflict with the board, and then the board totally changed it. It doesn't mean they're not a good candidate, it just may not be a good candidate. for
Our job is
Waunakee.
to bring talented people to you. We're gonna tell, you're gonna see everybody who apply in the background. If you ask and say, why didn't this person in closed session? We'll be telling that to you. But our job is to get talent to you and credible people who are not gonna embarrass the district in any way as a candidate for the finalist. And please know that that's how you last as a search firm. And not bringing candidates that are going to embarrass you or have baggage. That might surface.
Who you interview is the board's choice, though. You select the people that you bring in for interview. Usually it's about 6 or 7 people. You want 5 or more, so you don't have to disclose the finalists. If you have less than 5, you have to disclose the finalists. A lot of people who are applying do not want their name out there unless they're gonna get the job. They don't want to tell their current district that they're looking. I will say in Swallow, we brought them some really solid candidates to interview, and they ended up pulling somebody out of the maybe pile that looked interesting to them. When you see the candidates, you will see all of their applications, and you will also see a video interview that they did. There's a little 3-question interview. Sometimes those video interviews help you. They're not really oh yeah, I want that one, but they're not a good fit. They're really kind of pull people out of the pool that aren't a good fit.
So are these videos, that you need in your firm? or-
Yes, they're new to our from their the candidates using Thurston Jacobson will develop questions that are specific to characteristics. I mean, some of them are going to be related to student achievement and how you work with the board. They're not, it's not an hour-long type thing. It's, I think, maybe 15,
It's 3 questions, about 5. I think the longest person I've heard was about a 9-minute response, so it could be 30 minutes, but most of them are 15-20 minutes to watch all of their interviews.
and they can look at the question, they'll see the question, and then they can, or they can only do that once or twice or
I
something.
think you can re-record
But it's not,
twice.
so it's something, you get a chance to see them, you know, sometimes even the story of where they're doing it. Some choose to do it at work, some choose to do it at home, some choose to be very casual in their dress, some choose to be very, you know, professional looking. We always recommend that, but that's, you know, you will see those videos, and that's an important thing, because when we meet with you to talk about show the candidates, these are the people who applied, these are some recommendations we are making. You're going to say anybody that we think has potential, we have them do a video. We'll send it to McPherson and Jacobson and say, is it candidate? Because you want to get that going pretty. After we now keep in mind, every candidate we're going to call and talk to, say, you know, you're applying for this position, let's tell you a little about the position. Just want to get to know you a little better, and we'll ask questions like, is there anything we would find out about you as we search that we want to tell us now? We can give them a chance to do that. And, you know, we're going to be kind of, it's okay that we contact references, because we're going to be here, we're considering you, you know, as a potential candidate. So we've done an interview. You get all their information, their letters of recommendation, their certifications, their transcripts. You're going to be able to look at all of that in a video. And then the process will help you, guide you through a process of selecting the finalists.
The other piece of information you get
Not the
when you're
finalists.
looking at all of the candidates is our vetting. So we'll write up, this is what we learned about them through our vetting. These were the themes we heard from every reference. So you kind of get a feel for the candidate as well as we have a feel for the candidate. And then you decide who you want to interview, and you bring them in for interviews. We can sit with you for interviews. There's an extra fee for that, because you have an incredible director of human resources. I'm sure he could walk you through the interviews and make sure you're legal and don't ask any extra questions that would get you in legal trouble.
We'll help you develop the questions.
Yeah,
We'll
yeah.
develop the questions. Things related specifically to Waunakee.
That's the other thing, when we come to you with the candidates, that same night we'll develop the questions, and what we do is give you kind of a bank of questions that go with your key characteristics. And I usually throw those together, and I try to design questions that also bring in that stakeholder, those themes from the stakeholders. So then after you selected your candidates for interview, you'll design your interview questions. for the first round. Some boards like to design their interview questions for the second round right away. Some like to wait until they've seen the candidates and know what their I wonder about this, or what I didn't hear in any of the interviews was this, and then you design your finalist questions after you talk to the first round.
So we're really on phase 4 here. So the selection, you're selecting which candidates and the board is selecting. We're advising you, but we look for the board. You're consultants and you're going to decide which candidates you want to interview. You're going to know as much as you possibly can about those candidates. And then the interview process, we work with the board to establish the type of interview process they want. And who's involved in that? Is it just the board? Is it other groups? And then interview the candidates. Candidates might meet with the stakeholders as possible. Depending on how you want to do it. Some would choose to do an interview, some might choose to do a presentation with the finalists, just really making a presentation to a stakeholder group and then having a second interview with the board, the finalist interview with the board. Is that our time?
So once you have dwindled, once you've taken that big group and you've dwindled it down to your finalists, what that finalist looks like is really tailored to what Waunakee wants and what you feel comfortable and what fits your culture and community. Some people like to have stakeholder interviews and then the board takes the candidate out to dinner and has more of an informal candidate interview. Some just like to just do the board interview with the 3 and be done. And then Swallow kind of did an in-between. They had invited some parents and teachers and administrators to serve on that finalist interview committee. And then no matter what you do, if there's stakeholders involved, you would want the stakeholders' impressions upon what are the strengths here, what kind of concerns do you have. You're not asking them what their recommendation is, you're just trying to gather information from them. And all through this process, every time we go to stakeholders for input, we always remind them that this is the board's decision. That it's not a community vote. It's the community voice is to advise the board on what they should be listening for and what the needs of the district are.
Is this what comes out of those stakeholder meetings? You just record all the different comments and
We
then.
record comments. If you look at this, well, first we edit it to make sure there's nothing inappropriate or you're not using someone's name. And then then we put it into themes. We look at it, look for common themes. How many are they all saying that there's really financial needs in the district? Are they all, what are the common themes for that document? That's the important part. But yes, that is pretty much what is,
One of the themes that came out of Columbus was they really wanted somebody who was out there in the community, visible, shaking people's hands, kissing babies, they were really yearning for that really visible, energetic leader. So that was kind of a theme in some of their interview questions, and by God, they hired a really energetic, visible person.
So back to that final city, I will say that Oconomowoc, the board wanted to do, we tell them some different scenarios, but we had invited each candidate finalists, there were 3 finalists. They had tours of the buildings where they had a chance to meet staff and they wanted to watch how they interact with students and things. School was still in session at that time. And then they had dinner. The board had dinner, closed session, dinner with the candidates, so more in an informal way. And then after the dinner, they had their interview with the board interview with the final candidates. That was a process they chose. They did that three different nights. That's happened a few different times, quite honestly.
And while they were doing that, we were holding stakeholder sessions, or before that, we held stakeholder sessions so that the person could do a little presentation and take questions from the stakeholder group. And then the stakeholders filled out this is what I see, this is strengths, these are my concerns. And then we gave the board that data to look at each night after the candidate before they deliberated to decide who their final.
I think Mark had a question.
Well,
was just answered.
Oh, okay.
You know, and the other thing about the stakeholder input, I mean, we would recommend having some type of stakeholder, but ultimately it's still the board's decision. And remember, you know, if it turns out to be great, everybody's gonna take credit for it. If it doesn't turn out to be a great situation, then you're blaming the board. Always know that. That's the way it works. We, you know, we help you through that whole process. I will tell you, we even things like once you've made the selection, we'll help you with the contract. We'll help you with once you've made the selection, the drafting something that you can send out to the community. We help you through all that. We're very experienced in that. Something that would maybe come from the board president saying this is the process we use. This is the person who's selected.
Yeah, that's pretty important.
The superintendent thing as well, for a period of time.
Good question, because we offer a guarantee, if it doesn't work out. Offer a guarantee that we redo the search, just pay for expenses. But one of the caveats to that is that you have to establish with the help of McPherson Jacobson performance objectives, or not, you know, that you are, we want to make sure that you're being fair to the candidate, that you've at least had some performance objectives that there were, so the expectations were made clear. And if you've done that, then we would redo the search. But in terms of mentoring, we're going to know these people. We're going to be working, you know, just say what you know as much about Waunakee as you can. But yes, then in working with them, we're both experienced administrators, but they may be very experienced too. We hope we bring in some talent of experienced superintendents. We think we can, quite honestly. Too. So, but yes.
And we certainly can match them up with a district partner that's around here so that they have some like a go-to. Most people will come with a network of support. If they don't, we want them to be very successful. We want you to call us in another 10
What is your
years.
success rate?
It's a very high success rate. There's some statistics in here. I'm gonna give it to Wisconsin. The superintendents, well, we recently replaced and have stayed in those positions. McPherson Jacobson has a very high rate of people staying on, you know, for 10 years or so.
You guys, what is your success?
Well, if all of the superintendents that I have placed are still in their positions.
I've only been doing it for a year. You really don't want my answer, but they're all still in there.
Can you remind me how long have you been?
This is I've been there 2 years.
The people that the agents at the McPherson and Jacobson places have more than 5 years.
You know, there's a revolving door of superintendents. You see a lot of vacancies. We want to place someone who's going to stay here for a while. I don't know if it's realistic to think someone will stay 15 years. You hire someone thinking they'll stay 15 years, but I think, you know, 5, 7, 10 years is what you're looking for. Realistically, would be, you know, given the Waunakee very family oriented community that we want someone, you know, we live in the community and want to stay here. It'd be such a good relationship. They want to stay.
So the statistics are actually on page 5. There's 85% of our administrators are there after 5 years. After 10 years, about 60%, and after 40 years, about 40% after 15 years. I think 15 years is asking a lot.
I would say the best if you want to know.
We're used to that.
Yes.
Right. That would be great. It doesn't. What happens? I will tell you that the best thing you do to really find out about McPherson Jake, our search and as a team, is to talk to the board members from the last search. There's 2, and we just had a nice letter or a nice comment from the person we just finished a search on, but the Columbus search. Talk to those people and say, well, what's the we take this very seriously. We're not getting rich doing it. Becoming consultants. We really enjoy this, and I really believe it's such an important thing, and that we have a good feel about it. So in some way, we're kind of giving back. We are paid for this, but I'm just saying it's not other things we get to do more lucrative than these services. We enjoy doing this. We have experience working with boards. We have experience being superintendents, and this is we're very passionate about this.
And it's a commitment to K-12 public schools to make sure Wisconsin has a strong leadership in their public school system.
That's smart.
How many days would you be actually in the community?
Well, you would determine that the stakeholder groups, how many days you want us to be here would be determined. And it might look like this, depending on when we get started. So we're gonna we want to talk more about this. I mean, how do you want a superintendent hired before January 1st? That's the case, would you want to? You want to extend it out to, February or so, but we would spend at least 2 days. I would recommend a district this size. And that's pretty much all they think. We might do one at 9 o'clock. You might have us meet with the chamber of commerce or something. You might want to speak with a parent group, one in the morning, one in the evening, different parent group. We've done that in Columbus. We did that. You might want us to work with, meet with staff. I like meeting with students, and I always think that in the board, that's really good information for the board, quite honestly. Things that they're interested. So I really enjoyed that when I've recommended that group of students. It could be student council, it could be a random group, it could be all the board wants to, set it up to get a good diverse group. But that's probably two days of 5 different stakeholder groups in each. We'll meet with the administrative team, we'll meet with the staff. Other groups you can think of, community groups.
Pretty much anybody you want us to meet with them.
Yeah.
But then, the times we come in to meet with the board too, I think we spend some time in the community to try to get a feel, which helps us recruit the right person. Somebody who's lived in Chicago all their life is probably not the best fit for one.
You'll see a lot of us during this process.
Yeah, you'll get sick of us.
And we'll be together. This is a team. We've already started to think about Waunakee today. Candidates, that might be pretty good.
Yeah.
Fits for this position. That's what we're doing. We're texting each other every week. We're doing a search a couple times a day, talking about.
So if we hire you, we're gonna have to get name tags for.
You might want to, yeah.
Next year.
We could BYO. I think I have mine from my last 2.
I think we're about ready to wrap it up. Mark, you have one more question?
I know Steve's got a question, but a quick one. Do you incorporate Zoom meetings for the Zoom sessions for the focus groups or?
We can, and we probably would offer that up. I still think we prefer to be in person like this with the group. There's a different dynamic to that. But you have to be. I mean, I teach at college now. Now people want to just do it Zoom. They want to be, so we appreciate that. We certainly can do that. They're not closed session meetings with the stakeholders. So yes, we can do that. And I think it probably is best for some people who really can't get there for whatever reason, or want to be eating popcorn and their jabbies while they're doing it. I don't know, but yeah, we do that.
We would prefer to do Zoom, even though we do the survey for anybody who couldn't make the meetings. It's really the group dynamic and the discussion of the stakeholders and listening to one another and saying, hey, yeah, hey, that hasn't been my experience. And it's just part of that community building around the process, which is really important.
And you generally don't want board members at the actual state. The other thing is it's real important credibility piece. We say, Waunakee School District has hired us to be consultants. They've started a year ahead of time, and they want us to get input about characteristics related to the superintendent. So this is the timeline the board has established. There's all these pieces of telling the story to the stakeholders and telling them saying our credibility to be former superintendents and new researchers before that kind of thing. So that's part of the whole story. I think that's really important.
Steve, did you want to ask?
Yeah, if you don't mind,
Question?
thank you,
Yep,
Joan.
go
So
ahead.
Brian, myself, and Tim in the back of the room are part of the administrative team of the district. And we have a pretty veteran administrative team. How do you see the administrative team being able to be a part of the process?
They have to be a very important part of the process. So you're going to want to have one of the stakeholders be the administrative team, talking to the administrative team. We would work with the board and establish how you would want input from the administrative, board, but there might be a situation where the candidates meet with the administrative team. Ultimately, the board will make the decision, and the person works for the board. Superintendent, that's the only person that the board is direct, responsible for. So there's that. But if you have an experienced administrative team and the board wants to involve the administrative team, That's great. That's wonderful. That's the key. Who you'll be working with, so.
So Swallow just, they invited their very small district, so they only had 2 other administrators besides the superintendent, so they were both invited to participate on the interview panel. One on the first one and then one on the second one. Waunakee has a much bigger administrative team that stakeholder input might look a little different. Even when we do a listening session for stakeholders, that group might be divided up between more of the directors, principals versus lower level administrators. Very different concerns, right? Very different lenses. So our goal is to get as much information to the board as possible so that the board is making the best fit, best qualified decision.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. If you have any questions, please just shoot us an email and we respond
Cards are in
right
there.
away. Okay,
We do have a PowerPoint, we just, we can send that to you too.
you don't want to watch another PowerPoint. Thank you so much. It's so nice.
Good luck on your search, your court decision, and thank you for starting it early. It's really.
Thank you so much for your time. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Oh,
for your
thank
time.
you and. Good to see you.
Good attention. I like that. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank
Very
you.
nice. Pleasure very much for your time.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks.
Appreciate that.
Thank you. for coming. Sure.
John, can we take a?
Yeah.
2-minute break?
Why don't we do a little break after?
Thank you.
I know, I'm so glad I could have.
No, in the summer.
Just to kind of decide the process for the evening. Do we want to make a decision tonight? I do not know what happened to Ted. But he didn't hear the presentations, and so do we just do it as the 6 of us? Or somehow give him the information?
When you look at it, they all do want the same thing,
They do.
you know. They just said it in different ways and they charge different rates.
Yeah, you're right.
You know,
So-
I think if you look at, you know, AWP and the last ones, you know, they seem more intimate, getting involved. Seems like, you know, from my perspective, you know, HYA, you know, seem more corporate,
Absolutely.
and, you know, I think you got a challenge here in Wisconsin with, you know, budget issues and things like that, and.
So, Mark, comment.
To answer your question, we can't do it Monday because the agenda's out,
Yeah.
so it means another special meeting, and I would support going at the 6 of us tonight so we can get this thing moving.
I agree. I agree.
You could, if you wanted to do it Monday, I still could modify the agenda. I just need 24 hours notice. We don't post the agenda till, we don't release that until Thursday. So if you wanted to do something on Monday, you still have the ability.
Is there a way to say if we're very divided or if there isn't a consensus that we
Yeah.
would hold off?
And maybe we
if it
should have
turns
that
out-
discussion first, and if, you know, we are all kind of in agreement,
Then
kind of go, yeah,
Yeah.
I agree with that. So to what Jack just said, they all offer the same service, but there is a level of kind of corporate involvement or, you know, professionalism almost within each of them. Is there any, could we narrow it down to 2? Is there any company that you feel you would like to just throw out?
The thing I noticed, you all know the cost thing, so HYA and McPherson have the longest list of Wisconsin schools. And so to me, that would be a big thing I'd be looking for.
HYA and McPherson. did you say?
Yeah.
I was looking at all of them from a place of balance. Do they balance the tools available to them versus the personal touch? Do they balance the cookie cutter to what's customized? Do they balance their reach to a national reach, but understand and truly articulate an understanding of our community and our school district? So I would like to keep BWP in. You asked if we could throw someone out, because I did feel like they had that mix of,
Yeah.
they spoke to who we were and they seemed to do their background on who Waunakee is, but then they also have national reach. The catch there is cost, but the second one I felt had more menu card costing where it's this and this and that and that. And then I thought I'd take it right up to where, sorry, I'll look at the names again, BWP, yeah, where BWP is. So I didn't throw one out, but I would like to keep BWP in.
I guess when you look at it, just from the experience, level to your point, and professionalism and so forth, you know, I think, you know, while McPherson and Jacobson are nice people, neither one of them have been in this area very long. You know, they might have a network. They don't, this isn't their full-time position, full-time focus. And they probably got the network that they can go back to McPherson, which I think they would probably lead upon. You know, I like the BWP guys. You know, I think you know, their experience level is in the districts that, you know, we're in. You know, there are peer districts where the guys from Marshfield and northern Wisconsin is a little bit different, you know. So, you know, my choice voting on would probably be BWP.
I didn't hear that, Jack. What two?
The top one.
That
PW.
one is the one I would choose.
Did I miss it? Did the HYA, did they offer any services beyond past the higher point? Both BWP and McPherson specifically spoke to that tutelage / fostering development of the superintendent after hire. I know there's a guarantee for HYA, a
There's a
two-year
clause to it.
guarantee, but did they still speak to like coaching them after?
They talked in the back about a transition period, but
Right.
there's also. You can have an extended thing that they'll
Charge you?
charge you for.
Okay. Cool.
You were still.
I'm done.
You were
Okay.
I think it's important, like some of you have mentioned, to have strong connections in Wisconsin, because a lot of this does involve, active recruiting versus, just advertising. So for me, I think it's really important to have work with a firm that has folks that are, from Wisconsin, have worked here, have strong connections here. I think that's incredibly important. I don't know, Brian, what your thoughts were on, or Steve, or, what your thoughts were on the three and your experience and hiring candidates just in general for our school district, or, what your thoughts are.
I mean, I would say I felt more connected to one of the three, but before I would share that, I would ask, like, which one of the firms did you enjoy listening to? Like, did you feel they got their message across? They shared what they're about, because a huge part of this process is the ongoing communication that you're going to hear from them and you're going to get back. And so if there was messages like you didn't feel like you were receiving or connecting to, it's not going to get better, throughout this process. And so as much as I mean, I could answer your question, but I'm kind of deferring answer your question because. I mean, yeah, it's really yours. I mean, and I'll be able to partner with any one of the three. For sure.
But one of the things I do like, and no matter who we take, it would be nice to have a video. With those two or three questions, just getting that presentation style. Because I think you can get a feel for how those candidates can be, good people in that community.
You mean what McPherson were offering?
But I think we could customize that
Customize
process
that
to answer.
process to include that.
My concern, so I really did like the PWP.
Yeah.
The HYA. They said they wouldn't recruit a candidate they put in position for 5 years. That made me a little skeptical that they go out and recruit their own,
All of these people.
yeah, I do know that they probably all do that,
If
but
they don't see a candidate that's really good, they're gonna,
yeah.
so no matter who, the only people that wouldn't do that, I think, is McPherson Jacobson.
I don't know.
HYA, I love that they're embracing new tools, but it did feel very cold and I didn't feel the connection.
I
that
didn't
you were
feel the
speaking to.
connection.
I would say that the first and third is where I was feeling connected and my strong leaning is towards people. You were very consistent about asking the same question of all three. Did you feel like any of the answers stood out in any way or?
I felt like they were similar, and the point I was gonna mention to your question, Katie, is just speaking from an administrator who's been here for a long time. I think the administrative team would appreciate the board's consideration for some role in this. Whether it's while they're here, that they attend a full cabinet meeting. There's a lot of experienced administrators that I do know would want an opportunity to at least participate in the process where they develop their profile. Now, there's a lot of other people that are going to participate in that as well, but I know that the administrative team would appreciate an opportunity to participate in it, ultimately, no matter who you select.
So
But Judy, we haven't heard from you, which one do you like?
Oh, I was overwhelmed by HYA with, here's all the things that they're gonna give us and look at in this. I didn't like that one.
Would that be your kick it out?
That's my kick it
That
out.
would be my kick it out one as well. Do you want to vote on my kick it out one?
I wanted to. I was a little underwhelmed at first by McPherson and Jacobson, but they've got a personality, they've got a caring that's there. I just, and they have a network behind them. So knowing that they have a network behind them is a positive. So I guess I would keep the two in running if we're down to two BWP and McPherson and throw up HYA. But I do feel like BWP would be here for us. I thought the connection to the two gentlemen that were here, they seem to know their business and they've been superintendents. I think that's a plus.
So I'm kind of hearing that HYA might be our throw out one. So everybody kind of in agreement with that. So we're down to two. And again, they are very similar but different. Mark?
All right, so in reviewing BWP, Waunakee, Cedarburg, Grafton, Middleton, Cross Plains, Green Bay. I mean, those are really represented schools. As much as I like the cost from McPherson, is it? Yeah. Someone mentioned as we went around the lack of experience or the newness to their position. And so we have a large number of schools that the firm worked with, but they didn't. And the one thing that set me back from this group, they kept referring to Sawal, which is a school of about 400, and that I would have liked to have heard more about the larger school. So I would be leading more to BWP despite the cost increase.
I would be leaning towards BWP.
I don't know, I felt like they were a good balance.
I go with Bill.
I would also. The thing about the McPherson, I think. I don't know how much you look through those booklets of their questions. That is a lot of documentation that I think. We would have to do a lot of work. They give it to us. I don't know how much screening they do, and I mean, we all have limited time. I think that BWP will guide us more, give us what we need, but do more of the work.
That's just the same thing, that it would be more tabulated,
Yes, more tabulated. is a
so that
good way
we don't have to
phrase
do
it.
the tabulation by reading.
That was an immense amount of content. And it would be like after an hour, I'd fall asleep. And who knows when they come back. So, okay,
So you want to come down to a vote, I propose BWP.
Second.
any other discussion, questions? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. Okay, I guess we didn't really need Ted. Sorry, Ted.
You don't want to record that.
Oh. I think we are.
Joan, would you like me then to follow up with the three firms, communicate to DWP
Would you?
that they've been selected, and then I will work with them and reconnect with you about that next step, which is
Correct.
an initial meeting to plan on.
Correct.
Do we have to give the pens back then?
Well, was there one in there? I didn't see that.
They're in the packets.
We have one more item. Yeah, we do have one more item before we leave. There is a masonry bid for our elementary school that they would like this extra week. And the facility committee met prior to this. If you want to open up that, Rebecca, we voted 3-0 to recommend JP Cullen for that masonry work. They were the low bidder. I don't know if anybody has any questions. Somebody here could answer them.
They've got the capability to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, Rich was here at the facilities committee and he shared that the folks who put in the bids are all very qualified. The recommendation from the committee was we just need approval of that tonight.
Yeah, so we would just need a motion to approve that so they could.
Second.
Any questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
You. And with that, I think we can adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.